Story 1, Echoes in the Edit, submitted by Katrina. I'm a freelance video editor. I mainly edit vlogs and short indie films. A couple years back, I was hired by this guy, let's call him Jake, to edit some footage from a documentary he was working on. He traveled across the country, capturing stories of people living in abandoned buildings and old factories. It sounded cool, so I took the job. The footage was eerie. I mean, you'd expect that given the topic, right? Dim lighting, shadowy rooms, and walls dripping with age and neglect. It was a whole aesthetic. About halfway through my editing process, I was cleaning up some background noise in one of the particular interviews. It was with a woman, Rosa, who claimed she had been living in an old industrial warehouse for years. As I was adjusting the audio levels, I picked up on something I hadn't noticed before. A whisper. I zoomed into the audio waveform, isolated the noise, and played it back. It was soft, but clear. Don't trust him. Creeped out, but intrigued. I played it again and again, just to be sure I wasn't losing it. Now, I'm used to picking up weird background noises during editing, like birds chirping or cars passing by. But this was different. The weirdest part, Rosa didn't seem to hear it. She just continued speaking as if nothing happened. But wait, it gets stranger. I started hearing the whispers in other clips too. Different settings, different subjects, but the same voice, and always the same message. Don't trust him. By the time I heard the fifth clip, my heart was racing. It felt like some twisted game. Was someone pranking me? Or worse, was Jake involved in something sinister? Was he the him the voice was warning about? I thought about quitting right then and there, but I'm a pro. And if this was some elaborate joke or hidden message, I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I decided to confront Jake. The next day, I called him up and played the whispers over the phone. There was a silence at first, and then he just laughed it off, saying he'd never heard them before and thought it may be a technical glitch on my end. But his voice sounded off, like not completely genuine. I didn't buy it. I went back to editing, but now with a heightened sense of paranoia. Late one night, I was wrapping up another section when I saw something in the footage that made me extremely shocked. In a dimly lit interview with another one of Jake's subjects, there was a reflection in a broken window behind the person speaking. It was fleeting, but I could make out a face. My face. The clip was dated months before I even took on this project. I was beyond freaked out. The idea of being watched and stalked consumed me. I called the cops and showed them the footage and shared my suspicions about Jake. Turns out, Jake had been investigated previously for stalking and harassment, but there was never enough evidence to pin anything on him. Using my footage and other evidence they found, they were able to arrest him. Story 2, The Haunting Pixels, submitted by Jason. I am a freelance video editor, and I spend hours on end glued to my computer screen, chopping and slicing footage, adding effects, you know, the whole shebang. A couple of nights ago, I was working on this project for a client. Just your typical corporate promotional stuff. Nothing creepy or out of the ordinary. But this one night, oh boy. So it's about 2 a.m. and I'm sitting in my little home office. Everyone's asleep and the house is dark and quiet, except for the consistent hum of my computer and the click-clack of my keyboard. That's when it started. I was watching the footage closely, looking for any imperfections to fix. Then, right in the middle of the clip, I noticed something strange in the background. It looked like a face, just hovering there, expressionless. I thought it was just my eyes being tired, so I scrubbed back and looked again. There it was, clear as day. I zoomed in, trying to figure out what I was seeing. It was a face, but not like anyone I had seen before. It looked distorted, almost like a glitch, but it was definitely human, or at least it used to be. Now, I'm not one to get scared easily, but something about that face unnerved me. It wasn't a part of the original footage. I was sure of it. I even checked with the raw files, but it was there in every single copy. I tried to rationalize it out, thinking maybe it was just some weird reflection or a problem with the camera that recorded the footage. But things got weirder. Every time I tried to edit around that part, my computer would freeze or crash. It never did that before, and every time I restarted it, that face seemed to get more pronounced, more real. I got the call from my client the next day, asking if everything was going smoothly. I hesitated, but decided to tell him about the strange glitch. His response was unsettling. He said they had used the same footage before, and the previous editor had seen the face too. They thought it was just a weird anomaly and ignored it. But then, the previous editor had started seeing the face outside of the footage, in reflections, windows, everywhere. They had a nervous breakdown and quit the job. I finished the project, avoiding the part of the clip as much as I could, but I felt like I was being watched. I haven't seen the face outside of the footage, but the idea that it's still there, lurking in the shadows, haunts me. I don't know what it is or what it wants, but I know that I'll never be able to look at my editing screen the same way again. Story 3, Lurking Behind the Frame, submitted by Jermaine. This whole thing began with a gig I took for a friend. He'd film an old factory, wanting me to transform it into a concise documentary, just a narrative on industrial decline. For the most part, the clips were ordinary: rusty equipment, shattered windows, graffiti, and all that jazz. Yet one clip seemed different. Something in its background nagged me. Out of curiosity, I decided to scrutinize it. Breaking down the footage frame by frame, a figure in the window started becoming more noticeable. Initially, it was just a vague silhouette. I zoomed in, considering the possibility of it being a mere optical illusion or some odd reflection. But the more I studied, the more it looked like an actual person. I was slightly unnerved, but I attributed it to fatigue. However, as I continued sifting through the clips, that same figure kept reappearing in several scenes, always lingering in the back, always slightly blurry. It began to unsettle me, making me wonder if someone was trespassing or a worker present during the shoot. When I showed my friend, he seemed just as confused, though we tried to laugh it off. The uncertainty was there. As the editing process continued, the mysterious figure began to solidify in the footage. Not just a mere shadow anymore, but a clear human form. Disturbingly, it felt as though it was observing the camera. Me. With each passing day, the entity grew clearer. Its facial features, eyes, and even its expressions began to surface. The reality of it being present in a place it shouldn't was alarming. I became consumed by its presence. Reviewing the clips repetitively, I desperately tried to decipher its identity and its intentions. As days turned to weeks, My mental boundaries began to warp, intertwining the footage in my real life. The final straw was one evening during the editing process. In one of the concluding scenes, I saw the figure. It was right there in my workspace, just behind me, staring intently at the camera. In a frenzy, I swiveled around, but my office was empty. Going back to the clip confirmed the unsettling truth. I never completed that video. I handed back the footage to my friend, and I just mentioned I couldn't continue. He accepted it without further questions.